You can ship more, but you need actually to know what to ship. You think not about what to write, but about what not to write. So this characteristic that actually carries this trust maybe not disappears, whatever happens.
This is the Future of the Future show. I am your host, Mateo Berbejicio. Artificial intelligence isn't just changing how we build software, it is changing how companies operate. From AI employees working alongside humans to the mental models leaders need to unlearn or learn. This episode explores what it really takes to thrive in an AI-first world. My guest is Bogdan Snisar, an engineering leader at Solea AI who has spent more than a decade building software, with previous engineering leadership roles at companies like Revolut and Wix. He's also been on the founder's journey himself, launching multiple startups before joining one of the fastest growing AI ventures. That combination of operator, engineer, and founder gives him a uniquely practical perspective on product, AI, and what separates great technology from great businesses. Let's get into it. Bogdan, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for this nice introduction. It's really nice to have such interesting conversation right now. Yeah.
Bogdan, you
Perfect.
are part of the core engineering team building Solea AI, which automates calls, scheduling, and dispatch for field services businesses.
Yeah.
What have you seen from inside the company that convinced you AI isn't just improving software, but that it's also fundamentally changing how business operate?
Well, this is a good question. First of all, what I see and what I can say from kind of perspectives that I had, at least I can compare how it was, how it's right now. Overall, let's couple of comments about Solea first, and then I will explain how this happens. We started at the initial phase kind of as a call analytics, voice agent, so something like this. And then during the time realizing that we need to kind of build more value, and currently we're building a full FSM, field service management software, that includes actually everything needed for home service businesses end to end, starting from call analytics, whatever it is, or voice agent, ending to all set of operations actually that every home service needed, including pretty hard problems like scheduling, for example. So this is a current situation, and this is what we're building, and maybe that's our kind of a mod. What I see here are several approaches where I see AI actually makes sense for companies itself, because it's a good question overall how to make AI useful. That's my humble question and humble answer. How to make it useful, because it's a kind of nice slogan, let's apply AI, but when you're going to apply it literally, you always kind of, well, what to do next? Yeah, it's always a good question, what to do next? What I see, it's several things where it's really good for businesses itself or for operating. First of all, it's, and I don't want to say some generic words like workflows, or whatever people usually talking, because even workflow, it's pretty generic word. If you go in and talk with some existing startups who are building real workflows, for example, I know good examples like Legora. For example, my friend operating in a legal business, and they talked from Legora, so it's a workflow. You need to spend some time actually to automate it and to make this work. So you need first to understand what you want and what AI capable to. So this is the two prerequisites. From what I see, there is always something that always works for every businesses, And for example, we are also using it too. It's working with inbound or outbound communications. It's kind of easy win, definitely easy win, especially for communications where human not so important. For example, rescheduling, etc., etc., etc. So kind of inbound, outbound. Another good examples could be is ability to quickly understand the context by operators who are working from the software. So ability to chat with the context, because previously the kind of employee need to actually go through the software, finding something. Here there's ability to express yourself in English and receive the answer. That's the way how it definitely works, and there is a lot of startups doing in this space especially. Another thing, it's actually marketing, everything related to sales, leads, pipelines, etc. Campaigns, generating campaigns, follow-ups, etc., etc., etc. It's a lot of big space overall. And another things more specific to each business itself. So for example, for us, our case, it's a scheduling, and the AI responsible to build schedules for home services, for example. This is a kind of important part. And other businesses need to find out their own product vision. And that's why it's pretty interesting kind of consequence of this my answer. That's why product vision and ability to think in a product way becomes more and more important nowadays. I guess we will follow this question in the next way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many people are framing AI as replacing jobs, but many times you talk about AI employees. And what do
Yeah.
you think? What does a healthy organization look like when humans and AI workers are operating side by side? And where do you see the most value when this happens?
I guess currently everybody knows that the main kind of beneficial here it's software engineering. Just because any other roles, they're not so structural. Because if you're talking about even home services, it's definitely Wild West. For example, yes, so if you're talking about it's a real business. However, software engineering, let's say even something in the middle, it's legal companies. Also, when you go into the legal, because I know my friend who working in legal, he operates his own business in this. It's also unstructured. It's a lot of chaos inside of organization, even though it's a middle-term firm, middle-sized firm. To make AI useful there requires some organization changes or structural changes, systematic changes. So it's hard to find easy win or like low hanging fruit in this space. But in software engineering, it's actually where, and we see how cloud code, codex. That's why because the whole industry actually more or less structural. It's about processes and a lot of things actually applicable here. And I guess I will answer in this space. Because here I can definitely say what's beneficial and what works, what not. And what I see, there are several kind of changes how people should operate, at least how startups trying to operate. And I guess my answer will be more about not business itself, but about software engineering practices. And here I see three things. First one, just because we can coding agents, where it's definitely valuable thing. I mean, it's definitely can produce output, and this output useful. It's meaningful code that actually not so bad sometimes. Every engineer becomes more productive. At least you can ship more features. It's especially on small companies or startups where your whole context not so big as a corporation. Yeah, so it becomes a consequence of this. And this consequence next, you can ship more, but you need actually to know what to ship. And you need to be able to actually make decisions and actually to be able to validate what you ship. Just because you have more productive, just one part of engineering, it's coding. But engineering, it's a long set of things. And it requires actually to bring more responsibility to engineer, I guess. This is at least what I see, one of the answers people have. It's what called a product engineer. So the engineer responsible to make decisions and responsible to comes with these decisions even from product perspective. So kind of a self-made engineer responsible for the major part of the pipeline, even starting from the UI design, because it's a big shortage from UI design if you're working for a kind of fast moving company. Designers unable to produce quality design or quality Figma prototypes, whatever, just because you can ship kind of 3 features in a day. So it's impossible to produce 3 features, three designs during the day. So the engineer should be responsible to make the decisions on his own shoulders. So this is a change where I see how this kind of can live together when the engineer becomes more responsible and carry more responsibilities and functions, engineering functions on his or her shoulder. This is a way, at least I see how this is structurally possible. For non-engineering things, I guess is an interesting pivot, because majority of capabilities right now it's a coding. And maybe not non-tech people in some way should, and they can use some coding tools, for example. So I guess the way through it's actually when engineering practices can be extended to non-engineering teams. At least it's some that already works. And you can just only extend it by having the right tools, for example, Cloud Code or whatever, yeah? And this way you can at least copy-paste this set of practices instead of reinventing the wheel somewhere in your legal tech company, whatever. However, it brings more responsibility or more challenges to particular people. It's at least, I'm trying to say generic, but my overall perspective more or less focused on engineering side.
So you worked in many sides of the startup journey, from founding companies to helping fast-growing companies, structure themselves, etc., etc. And I like what you were saying, right? You can ship more, but you need to know what to ship, and engineers now have more responsibilities, more functions, right? Do you see, with everything that you have seen and how AI is changing the way that we work, engineering and product are sort of merging and cross-pollinating in a different way? And how do you think about that and the roles in the future?
Well, it's hard to foresee exactly, but definitely it's the merge happening. It's definitely there's several types of teams. The teams who trying to resist to these changes, or someone who actually using this as much as they can just because they need to. Startups, for example, they have constraints. Yeah, they have constraints on the time, budget, whatever. So yeah, so you definitely going into the token maxing, how we're talking about. In this way, in this environment of token maxing, definitely this merge happening. And yeah, this is the issue that engineer can carry more responsibilities. It's called currently even there is a trend called matrix structure. So one engineer can carry several functions. For example, product designer, and maybe like primary as engineering, secondary as a designer, whatever. Yeah, responsible for the design, and this is just the reality. Yeah, so tiny team, but more functions for every person. In this way, you can actually utilize these capabilities in a more or less productive way. Otherwise, you just have a bottleneck. You can write more code, but what to write, where to write, what design, what decisions, etc., etc. Just because previously nobody prepared for this productivity gain, especially for engineering. Yeah, so this is definitely one of the answers. And the other answer, it's some changes happening even on this way, just because, for example, I mentioned specifically, I mentioned token maxing. So idea is that we have unlimited tokens. This is, let's say, already kind of, people can, not everybody justifies this. So we already hear that we have a token budgets. And if you have a token budgets, maybe this merge not immediately like I described, because you already have a constraints, and these constraints actually just make the whole process a little bit more maybe fast, maybe a little bit chaotic, maybe with some additional kind of things, but overall it will be the same. Yeah, just because you already have a constraints in your kind of agents. However, for the space where you have unlimited context or limited, let's say, tokens, definitely this merge needed to be to utilize this.
That makes a lot of sense. And I want to talk a little bit now about mental models, which I know is very
Yeah,
big for you, right?
yeah.
So we use mental models to simplify complex decisions, but those same models can become sometimes blind spots, right? So which mental models have become more valuable in the AI era, and which ones do you think engineers and leaders need to unlearn, if you will?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a good question. I had this couple of articles about this, and overall, this is interesting. Maybe the first one I already mentioned about the engineering practices and engineering team organization. Just because even this one constraint that you can deliver more requires you to think about your amount of features that you're going to ship and amount of another parts needed to deliver. Just because it's engineering, it's a software development life cycle. You just have increase in only one part of it, coding. Another parts will be the same, and in reality, you need just do something with them to utilize your capabilities in what cloud code or codex gives you. That's the first mental model, that you actually need to focus not on amount of tokens that you're going to spend, but actually to how to unblock this amount of tokens, spend it on your particular coding tasks through the downstream pipeline, for example. This is a pretty interesting mental model, and this is not exactly about kind of let's put AI agent for code review. However, it's one of the way. If you ship more, you just need to organize your engineering across, maybe use more tools to review your code. Just because attention becomes more important, because you have 30, 40 pull requests. Well, I don't have attention for all of them. Ideally, I need someone to look first, and then after some AI bugs found, already just make some decision. So this is one of the tools, but overall this is the idea how to unblock downstream processes. And this is, for example, first one. And another big part of model or big part of understanding, I guess, should be around, well, there is more practical one and more generic one. More generic, I guess, in this overall it's just because you can write a lot of code. In reality, you should think not about what to write, but about what not to write. Just because you are productive and you, in some way, become more and more capable of making easy decision at the beginning. Just a simple example, we have whatever it is, let's say CRM, yeah? Let's write our own CRM. Sometimes it's pretty justifiable, especially if your CRM costs kind of 100K in a year. Okay, but if it's something that will bring a lot of complexity later, this easy decision at the beginning, because vibe coding gives you this easy decision vibe, can become pretty problematic. And it comes to a lot of another more small things like repetitive code, a lot of repetitive things like 20 types of loading button done on your front end, just because every time AI will recreate the same pattern for every place, and you should be explicit to forcing coding agents not to do this. So this is about limitations, that just because these more capabilities in some way makes the old-fashioned do not repeat yourself paradigm more important, even more. So in some way you should learn extreme programming practices from scratch again, just because they become more and more important in this way, especially on a couple of them. You're not gonna need it, and do not repeat yourself or some other things. So it's kind of basics, but just because you can write more code, this basics becomes important, especially in this way. That's kind of leadership or organization generic mindset, I guess, makes sense. Not trying to try new tools, but however, it's also worth trying. But in some way, keeping an eye on what's going on your code base, because otherwise it becomes problematic. And I don't believe AI will be, let's say, 100% capable to replace engineers. And maybe not unfortunately, or maybe unfortunately, if you already were tired about writing code, it's better to write music in some ways. yeah. Well, this is interesting observation, the first and the second. And maybe the third observation that I see, it's how people using AI. It's definitely some transition happening in the mindset of the person who are trying to use a coding agents, because usually people, for example, trying to write it as an assistant, let's say, the first level of usage of it, just something like cursor. When you have assistant, you write in code your own, and then you have a cursor like additional context or additional helper. This is the first level of usage, and I know a lot of people just using this one. The second one, it's when you have a cloud code session or codex session. Actually, I love both. When you just given this ability to write for you, but then you just check your manually. So this is kind of your pair programming body. And the third way, where you have just 10 or whatever number of sessions doing some stuff, and you just have to approve everything. This is the three evolutions, and I guess every step in this pipeline worth some number of attention, especially the third one, when you have a lot of kind of constant running sessions. You write a lot of pull requests, you're using loops to reply to the pull request comments. So in some way, you exactly what I'm talking about. You can ship extremely a lot of pull requests, kind of. We count from the pretty small team, we did kind of 400 pull requests in a month, I remember. Well, it's not so small number. Maybe people doing more, but it's not so small, because you in this speed, you don't have attention for everything. You don't have ability to kind of consume the context from all pull requests and actually at the end understand from end to end what actually was done during the months, just because it's too much of things. And just because of this, you need to think how to unblock this attention and how to deal with the amount of changes and how to deal with consequences of this amount of changes. So this is the three big parts of overall mental model that we have, and we can just dive into some of them, or you have some additional questions.
I think what I want to ask you next is, and this can be a long answer, but I would like to make this the final question, is a lot of engineers are listening, right? And you're talking about mental models and you're talking about how things are changing and what they need to do. If we think about the future, what type of skills do you think will become more valuable? And what does, looking a few years ahead, what will distinguish the people that will thrive, right? Are we talking skills or technical expertise? Are we talking adaptability? Are we talking communication, systems thinking, something completely different? What do you think is vital for everyone listening on? Look, this is going to become ever more important as we keep going through this journey.
It's an interesting question because it's also relevant to me myself. Yeah, just because it's interesting what's happening. I guess there are several things. First one, I don't think engineers will disappear. 100% no. The reason because it's cloud code available to everybody or codecs. So just everybody has this thing, so everybody will start writing code, and while whatever good it is, you still need to make decisions. So decision making, ability to make decisions, and this actually valuable for product decisions, like what to build, as I mentioned, and what not to build actually. Just because you have more power, well, why you need to ship something if we can, for example, buy it or whatever. Yeah, just this ability to make decisions, or ability to see consequences of your decisions, just because should we build it or not. This is pretty. Let's say this questions was relevant before, but they were like there was natural constraints. You were unable to build a new feature in a week. You were able to build it in a month, and just because of this, there were people who actually, for example, counting money, and they said, well, you requested the budget for the whole month. Did you count it well? And okay, after this feedback, you maybe rethink your decisions. These were just natural constraints, or kind of constraints comes from the reality. Now we have kind of more stuff, and it makes more stuff on your shoulder, so to making decisions. This is a pretty generic answer, kind of, but this is pretty thing that definitely on the table. So ability to make decisions. Another thing, it's actually, let's just zoom out, yeah, and think on this engineering. Imagine that we have a coding agent, yeah, and we have some important feature, and we're going to build it. Okay, let's say we're using auto approve, we all AI native, whatever, and let it build. So AI will finish this work. You even can ask AI to do double review, triple review, or whatever. Yeah. The question: do you trust to whom that this feature actually exactly like this? So, are you fully trusting Anthropic or Codex, or actually the quality of prompts that you used? Or you're trusting the person that actually were the owner of this process. And by the end, it will appear that you actually trusting the person. So maybe there is some characteristics inside this person that actually makes this trust. Someone not having these characteristics, and then you just, well, maybe worse to replace by AI, however, I not fully believe in this. So this characteristic that actually carries this trust maybe not disappears, whatever happens, just because this is some fundamental part of the engineering or the shipping features. I guess it's worth looking on this particular set of characteristics that makes the person kind of trustable, or that you are able to deliver something from end to end. This ability to deliver is actually what's not replaceable. Maybe at some extent, if you have 10 agents, whatever it is, but still there always will be a question, at least in some way. This is the second thing, and maybe what else to mention? Like different practices, how to use AI, definitely it worth attention, especially because it's changing always. Like, but if you're feeling that you're not catching everything that happens, it's fine. Nobody, so nobody catching everything that happened in AI. So just chill on this. I believe it's not worth big attention. So this thing, and maybe the last interesting skill, just because one specific. So there is a two kind of this boom in AI actually reveals two interesting things. Kind of a middle specialized person, the person who just specialized in something, but is this something not too deep. It becomes kind of, I don't like the word replaceable, but the value of this knowledge not so, let's say this has a discount. Yeah. So you either should be a generalist, just because you have more abilities, you have more responsibilities, as we discussed, you have more functional roles, and that gives you kind of requirement to be a generalist in some way. Actually, it's a counterintuitive, because previously it was called as an anti-pattern. Like if you know kind of the person, let's say it was a T-person idea, that person who learn something and then something as a complementary skill. For example, backend engineer and DevOps practices, whatever. Yeah. If you kind of a DevOps engineer, you know backend, but you know front end, it's already kind of weird. Whatever, well, it's strange. So it's previous mindset. Currently, I believe it becomes a little bit more not so strict, because you have ability to using your codex for DevOps and for backend. So that's why you need to understand a lot of things, and becoming generalist is the answer. Maybe this is not exactly even engineering skills, but as we discussed, product stuff too. Especially if we're working about startups, it's some either intuition or whatever. So it's pretty kind of counterintuitive to previous paradigm. Or you become a really, really deep focused person, like machine learning. However, it's a good question, because people in machine learning also struggling, because a lot of things pretty good AI can do for you. So, or maybe some low level, because, for example, writing controllers or some low level code still not AI native, I would say, or GPU kernels, whatever. Yeah, so such stuff that actually not so deep. Let's say that's pretty complex for AI, or it's not so easy as writing Python. So this is the two ways where the overall engineering, I guess, or let's say some part of engineering splitting. So either to be a generalist or be a deeply, deeply focused specialist. My personal opinion, I still trying to be generalist, because to being it requires to be specialized in something really, really deeply, requires a lot of years doing this and some mindset. So my natural way doing more generic way, and actually my whole career was about. So I exactly this wrong person who knows front end and how to cook Kubernetes in AWS, unfortunately, or maybe successfully till days. Yeah. So this is the three kind of interesting ideas how I see it for the short-term future. Long-term, it's open question for everybody. I'm not so pessimistic. So people who are saying that, especially like people from big companies, like middle work or kind of early work doomed. It's too apocalyptic point of view, and well, maybe if they like to be like this, it's fine. But I like to be more more positive. Yeah, that's my answer on overall things.
Me too. I like to be optimistic. I love your answer. I think it gives us a lot of ideas for the title for the episode, actually. But Joe, three things you mentioned: decision making, how important that is
Yes.
right now, how valuable that is. The second one, trust and the ability to deliver, right?
Yes.
The third one, you know, the drive towards being a generalist, but I tied that third one to the two things you said before. A generalist in the good sense of the word and not in the bad sense, because you're a generalist, but whenever you need to go deep, you go deep, right? And you make the right decisions and you question AI the right way and you retain your critical thinking, right? I think that there is this temptation of being a generalist more in a lazy way, but I see you and your mental models and how you work. And in your case, it's being a generalist, but if you need to go deeper, having that ability to learn and go deeper, right? And to have that critical thinking of whatever you are facing, and still to be able to deliver with that trust that you mentioned, and still to be able to make the right decisions. Which is why I love your answer. Did I get that right? Do you think it's a valid
Yes.
interpretation?
Yes, this is a pretty good interpretation. Just because be generalist, uh, yeah, it's a right angle. Just because you know everything and nothing. Yeah, so this is a not right way of doing things. You should know a lot of stuff and be able to understand where to go when you have some kind of ambiguity in a kind of things that you're building, especially when LLMs, and they will, maybe there's fundamental constraints, they always have hallucination. So it's a fundamental constraint, maybe it's unsolvable at all. So it's always have ambiguity in the answer or some kind of, especially even right now, it's ambiguity in a lot of things, especially when you're trying to over-engineer something.
Yeah.
That's learning extreme programming, yeah. So just keeping at least some common sense from it. So this is a right angle, I think. Maybe the right angle would be how to learn this set of things when
Yeah.
you already have a ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And this is actually really, really the good question, because I a little bit unaware how you can learn these things without making decisions or making something wrong or making kind of people before spend a lot of time reading Stack Overflow, or when you don't have some answer on Stack Overflow, you kind of trying to debug or kind of trying to solve it, and sometimes it works, yeah, and you write in some new Stack Overflow article. So this is a kind of way how people did it. Right now, you just asking ChatGPT how to learn this set of things. This is a really interesting answer. Maybe in some way we comes to the way that we don't need to do whatever just because you write ChatGPT or Codex and it did for you everything. But it's kind of not works in this way, and it's hard to foresee how it becomes more and more. Yeah, it working really nice on small projects. On big projects, people is spending a lot of money just making big projects also valuable. Like a lot of context, a lot of kind of tools, a lot of internal tooling. What I know from people from big companies. However, this is kind of. This is kind of, some way trap, because if you have all done for you, well, how to train this critical thinking? This is kind of a good question overall, and I don't think this is answered yet.
Oh.
Maybe there will be some coding academy, or there is some opportunity for startups, especially in this way, but it's not pleasant way, and I don't believe it's. I mean, it's a good question. It's a good question. How this is maybe in this way, lack of this opinion on coding or lack of decision making. Let's say opinions. Majority of value on all our AI coding, it's opinions about what AI did for you. So you have opinion about this. So this opinion becomes valuable and more valuable. And majority of decision makings actually shift to this opinion phase.
Yep.
So you even not making decision how to write the code, how to model whatever under the hood, but you have opinion on the output. So you just asking ChatGPT or whatever, give me the summary of what you did, why you did it, justify some parts, what evidences you had, so this set of kind of follow-ups, whatever, and then you have opinion on this. This opinion actually becomes more important. How to learn this opinion? Well, that's open question for new generation, unfortunately.
It's an interesting concept. I have a law background, and something that we pay a lot of attention is in different ways in different countries, but precedent and jurisprudence, right? And similar
Yeah.
cases to what we're working on and how those were decided, right? And many times you are trying to understand if you're making the right decision or you're looking for the right angle for a new case by looking at similar cases in the past. So maybe some of that critical thinking gets taught by, okay, XYZ company was building blah blah blah, and the way that it was built was by doing that. I don't know if that can be done on the coding side. It's kind of a weird place with a lot of creativity, different than the what will be analyzing a law, etc., etc., etc. But there's something there. There's something about studying cases that are analog to what you're doing, right? And from there, try to learn what is the best way, and or at least have that critical thinking of, okay, why this way, why don't why not that way, or whatever.
Well, yes, I guess LLM becomes more and more interesting, kind of the efficiency of agent harnesses. I believe will increase in this space too, because there is a big companies who trying to build data sets. For example, Turing or whatever, who just spending some time, especially on these decision-making tasks. Yeah, so Turing is a good example. Yeah. So this is the way how it's trying to build this kind of backtracking or ability to make decisions. But it's still the human in the loop exists, and this human making decision. We had a couple of examples. For example, in my humble opinion, I tried several things for kind of fully AI did. So let's say we need a migration of the new client from the new system X to our system. Migration is just lift and shift of all their data. And we had really small time constraints, kind of. This is a second priority, but this is a client. So what I did, I said ChatGPT, but in quotes, of course, like the model that I used, like say, do this migration. You already had several examples, whatever, did it. Like it spent some amount of tokens, then spent again. So this is a loops, and at the end, it was not so good. Definitely, it's not good. It missed a lot of problems. It missed a lot of data. It missed a lot of things. We still, it's maybe already several months. We still cleaning this part of the crap, especially just because it was time constraints. It's a startup. You should make a decision, but it was done full automated, full automated. Like I never look into the code at all. I just tucked in through the chat. Never looked through the code. Results was not so good. It worked, but let's say 60% of success. It's not what you want. This is a good example for me. It's a good feedback that actually you shouldn't trust this without some set of validation. However, this is 60% of success, so you can in some way utilize this knowledge that for 60% it already can make some decisions, and you can use it for validation, feedbacks, debugging, a lot of things actually. But with the knowledge that this is a 60% of understanding the complex stuff. This is how AI I see. Maybe it becomes more and more, let's say not 60, but 70, 80 someday.
Right.
But this, I still believe there will be some borderline between what I mentioned during our conversation. You have a feature, pretty important feature, and you have a person or AI. You, by some reason, still will choosing this person. Or about the lawyers. Yeah, you have a ChatGPT lawyer or Anthropic Cowork lawyer or whatever, or you have a real lawyer who are using Cowork. Who you will choose and why you will choose.
Right.
So there will be definitely some characteristics in the person that actually makes the decision on his way. And ChatGPT maybe just makes these signals more kind of visible for people.
Yeah. Very good.
Matter
Bogdan.
of trust.
Yeah, trust. And that's a good way of ending this conversation, Bogdan. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank
Yes.
you so much. I appreciate it. I hope that we stay in touch and we can do this again
Yes.
in the future
Perfectly.
sometime.
Yes. Perfect. It was interesting questions. Thank you for answering, questioning, and thank you for ability to answer.